What's up, YouTube? Today we are going to visit the moon. Okay, not exactly the moon, because the moon doesn't exist in Kerbal Space Program. Instead, we get something called the Mun, which I guess is kind of an analog for the same thing. But unlike traditional moon visits that you may have seen on TV or sci-fi movies, things like that, we're not going to be doing it with a rocket. We're going to be doing it with this beautiful space plane that I have here. Now I'm running Kerbal Space Program version .23, and I have a metric crap load of mods installed, as you can probably tell just from looking at my screen here. You'll just looking at the craft, I can easily identify at least 3 separate mods, 4 with the cargo bay open, as you just saw there, and they just add so much to this game that it's kind of surreal. It changes the game completely. And let's see here. We need to stick some crew in this thing really quick here. I've got two command sections. I've got the cockpit of the aircraft, obviously, which the Jeb and Bill are taking the helm there, and then the landing capsule inside the cargo bay there needs crew as well. So we'll stick in a couple of geniuses and an idiot. That sounds like a good plan. But yeah, the mods, I try to avoid mods that are just way overpowered, give you unlimited fuel, things like that. Instead, I tend to add mods that add function and form without making the game too easy, so to speak. Now, one of the mods that I'm running here is kind of controversial in that regard. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, well, it's a bit overpowered." My aircraft is powered by a pair of nuclear reactors driving 2 thermal turbojets. And some people I've heard claim that the thermal turbojets are overpowered because they don't use fuel when they're in the atmosphere. This is true to a point, but however, you must also factor in the fact that the 2 14-ton nuclear reactors on the back of my aircraft definitely count for something. That extra weight, if I didn't have that there, that could be fuel. So if you want to think of it as that analogy, that you're carrying extra weight for the reactors, and that's your fuel source. Let me just turn the lights on here so I can see my takeoff. So then that's part of KSP Interstellar, which is a really great mod. I've only been playing with it for a while, but I'm really kind of in love with it. Once you get into it, it's just great. The stuff it adds nuclear reactors, different types of propulsion. And later on, you can even get up to warp drive and antimatter reactors and things like that. I haven't got that far yet. I am playing career, so everything that I have unlocked here is part of the natural career progression when you're using the KSP Interstellar custom tech tree, which just adds a few nodes at the end of the tech tree. So it doesn't really change anything, doesn't make anything come too fast. Actually, most of the Interstellar stuff is very end game. But a lot of the other mods that I use, they're all obviously integrated into the tech tree, so I wouldn't say that I've cheated at all here. One of the other mods that I'm running is Farrem Aerospace for Firespitter. This is a new one for me. I actually installed this yesterday, and I'm still kind of figuring it out. Basically what it does is, and you'll probably be able to tell here in just a few moments, it completely changes how the game handles aerodynamic interactions. I got my little placeholder aircraft down there. I thought the space center looked a little bland with just a bunch of buildings, so I parked a recon plane on the tarmac there for dramatic effect, and also so I can find KSC from orbit a little bit easier. But yeah, as you notice there, the plane just kind of glided right off the runway. And this is because Farrem Aerospace, which I just opened up the dialogue there for you, is actually calculating the lift the way an aircraft would interact with the atmosphere. That's why you'll notice that I'm kind of wobbling a little bit. I've got SAS on to help keep the plane steady, but because of the sheer number of control surfaces that I have in order to maintain stability at higher speeds, at lower speeds it becomes very, very touchy. Now I'm just going to do some fast forwarding here because I'm sure you don't want to watch a rather long takeoff. This aircraft is incredibly fuel efficient, but it doesn't have the raw thrust to just fly straight up out of the atmosphere. I have to kind of do a slow, gradual climb where I increase my Mach up to, I think I kind of top off around Mach 2 or Mach 3, and then you can see here I kind of suffered a bit of a flame out when trying to switch from atmospheric mode to intake air mode. And that's a quirk of KSP Interstellar, that there's 2 different types of intake, because the thermal turbojets can also operate on non-oxygenated planets like Duna or or I don't know, I've never been to Eve, so I guess I don't know if it's oxygenated or not. But since they can operate on those planets as well, they needed a custom resource that would include those atmospheres for use in the turbojets. Because of the way the thermal turbojets work in regard to their thrust being a factor of how much total intake air they're taking in, if you toggle between intake atmosphere and intake air, which is the stock KSP air, you can get a little bit of a boost of thrust at medium altitudes. So I kind of tried to exploit that a little bit there. I'm not sure if it's an exploit. I guess you could say that the oxygenated air gives you a little bit more thrust than non-oxygenated. I don't know. However you want to look at it. But yeah, so I recovered from that little flameout, and that was actually because I used an action group to toggle the propellants, and for some reason it didn't toggle the propellants for both engines, it only toggled it for the one, so I suddenly had an excess of thrust in my left engine and a lack of thrust in my right engine, which caused me to spiral out of control a little bit. And the plane's very hard to control, as I'm going, I think, Mach 1.4 or 1.5, somewhere in there. Kind of cruising right along. And we'll get back to the fast forwarding here. Actually, you know what, I'm just going to fix that action group just so that I don't have that issue in the future, because I will need to toggle propellants over to liquid fuel once I get out of the atmosphere here. So let me take care of that really quick, and we'll get back on the road, so to speak. I guess this is a road, kind of. No? Not quite. Well, I'll have to think of something else then. So this is another mod, Action Group Manager, which allows you to adjust your action groups in flight. And I swear this thing has saved me so many times, because I'll be testing a new aircraft design or a new rocket, and I'll realize, oh, I forgot to assign an action group for my solar panels or something like that, and I don't have to go around clicking 6 or 8 solar panels to all activate them. And you can just go into AGM and grab all the solar panels and say add them to an action group right there in flight. And it's very streamlined. Very smooth once you get the hang of it. So we're back to the magic of fast travel here. Believe me, this was a rather long journey from start to finish, even with KSP's built-in warp. So I'm just going to be doing some quick orbital maneuvers here to circularize my orbit at about 102 kilometers or so, and then we're going to plot a course for the Mun, which is pretty nice. Actually, I have to change my inclination. There we go. And we'll get lined up on a moon approach. Now, I'm not sure exactly what happened here, but maybe an editing error or something. But apparently I lost the footage of the travel between Kerbal and the Mun. But it was just basically fast travel. I didn't have to do any course corrections, so you're not missing anything. And if you look at the orbit plot there, I'm just arriving in I think about a 34 kilometer orbit around the Mun. And I'm just looking at my Kethane and Extraplanetary Launchpads ore maps. And as I found when I was doing a survey of the Moon earlier, a vein where there is both Kethane and ore. So I plan to put up a moon base there, and that's the purpose of this mission. I'm landing this lander here as a... Oh, I just... wow, I'm an idiot. I put RCS on it, but I forgot to put RCS tanks. So I have to hope that the control wheel, the reaction wheel, will be enough of a force to help me land successfully. But yeah, I found this vein where there's both Kethane and ore, so I plan to put up a fully fledged moon base there with ore and Kethane, so I can mine and build rockets on the moon and then fuel them using Kethane, as well as some of the KSPI stuff as well. There's some mechanics for in situ resource utilization in KSPI as well, such as the aluminum rockets, the aluminum hybrid rocket, and a few others. You can fuel your rockets using methane or pure water, actually, in some cases. Pure water actually delivering the highest amount of thrust as opposed to some of the other fuels, because with a nuclear reactor you're not actually burning or combusting the fuel. You're superheating it to the point where it combusts on its own. And in the case of hydrogen, oxygen, or water, you actually end up with a really efficient fuel mixture: 2 parts of hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. Once it's I'm not sure if the system, kind of electrolyzes it, or if it just heats it up so much that it basically splits. I really couldn't tell you, but it works. And here you can see my cockpit. This is part of Raster Prop Monitor. It's a really great mod. I'm actually in love with this because it just makes the cockpit seem so much more realistic. There's actually a reason to go into your IVAs now. And you can do a lot of different things with it. Like right now I'm just showcasing one of the external cameras that I have placed inside my cargo bay while I use the RCS thrusters to kind of push me away from the lander, which I just undocked from. And you can do another number of other things. There's a digital Nav Wall, which offers much greater fidelity than the kind of little 3D one that you have in your cockpit, and the fact that you can zoom in on it makes it really nice. It also displays a lot of other pertinent information, like for example, when you're docking with something, it will show you the target's facing angle, so you can line up like relative to it, 90 degrees to 180 degrees to it, so that you can dock with it. I don't know if I actually showcase that particular. Actually, yeah, I do. A little bit later on, you'll see it. So here I'm just kind of neutralizing my velocity to the lander, which I'm not really sure why. Mostly just because it looks cool seeing my shuttle here flying in close proximity to the lander. And yeah, just kind of chilling here in space. I'm going to switch over to the lander now. And I realize this video is actually probably going to be a little bit longer because I just had a really crazy idea. So I am going to use MechJeb for the landing. And I know a lot of people think MechJeb is cheating, but the way I figure it, it's pretty high up in the tech tree to unlock the tech to actually use MechJeb's autopilot features. Other than that, you pretty much just get like, smartass and kind of the maneuver node planner, which the maneuver node planner is nice. It does offer some automation in that you can execute the nodes that you create with it automatically, but you still kind of have to know like what each maneuver does. So it still teaches you about the game, and I found it to be a very important learning tool. In addition to watching several of the other really great YouTube tutorials, Scott Manley's videos have been a really good inspiration on getting me kind of pointed in the right direction in my KSP career. But in the interest of time's sake, we are going to use MechJeb to speed the landing. Also because I'm kind of landing in a really awkward spot. I'm off inclination for the landing location, and it's on the dark side of the moon, which would make the landing kind of difficult because I have lights on the lander, but none that are directly like down facing, or none that are set up to cast a shadow for me so I can see my actual distance to the target. This is another great mod that you see here, the Alcor Landing Pod, and you'll get an interior view of this here in a little bit. But it's a 3-man lander can, pretty lightweight. I think it weighs just over a ton, maybe a little bit less. It's just really efficient, really great design. Kind of tricky to put parts on it exteriorly because of the way its collision mesh works, but that's okay. Once you get the hang of it, you can kind of create some really cool stuff. The interior view on this, which is the absolute showcase of the mod, is just spectacular. It's fantastic. I love it. It really makes you feel, if you've ever played any of those DCS combat sims, where like you're sitting in the cockpit of like an A-10 Warthog or a helicopter or whatever, and literally every switch in the cockpit that you can see does something. That's kind of what sitting in the cockpit of this lander feels like. It's really well done. So once I get set down here, I will be happy to show you that. Now, speaking of MechJeb, I actually have had issues in the past where I tried to use the auto land feature, and MechJeb conveniently forgot to fire the braking thrusters, which usually resulted in me splatting into the planet or moon or whatever the case may be at a uncomfortable 150, 200 meters a second, depending. So I'm just gonna keep really good track of this. Turn on the lights a little bit so I can see, and hopefully it will actually land me correctly. Let's just cross our fingers. It seems like it's doing okay. It's zeroed out my velocity, and now we're falling towards the moon surface. Now I have landed on the moon before. Obviously, you saw one of my flags earlier in orbit, but I didn't use MechJeb for that. I'm just using it in this case for convenience. Actually, looks like it might work. Hooray! Oh, whoa, 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 no, quick spin, spin. Okay, alright. Okay. That would have been awkward, especially without RCS to pick myself back up. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Looks like we landed right smack dab in the middle of our vein, which is nice. And next to a crater. How about that? I was trying to look and see if there's more level of a spot that I can move to that's still in the same kind of region to ease future landings for the heavier equipment, which I'll need to bring in at a later time. But it looks like this is kind of as close as I'm going to get. So let's pop out and have a look around, I suppose. Let's send one of our village idiots out, our lander idiots, Kerbal idiots. They're all idiots. They're Kerbals. Bouncy, 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 bouncy. I can't see. Okay, how is it that my headlights are brighter than the lights on the lander? That just, I'm, what? What? Wee. Yeah, Kerbals can't land. It doesn't matter what gravity they're in. If there's like, 0.01 gravity and they're doing an aerial maneuver, jumping, they will almost always face plant when they land. I don't know why. Maybe it has to do with their really short stubby legs. Maybe if I put up a flag, it will help. Got my trusty Jolly Roger on there. Let's see, this is a mining site, so let's name it something mining-ish. We'll call it PTMC Mining Outpost. Yeah, let's see if any of you get that reference. Although I guess it would probably be KMC, but that's okay. Please, no robots. Yeah. All right, so let's have a look at this this interior here for you. Yeah, so you see all these raster monitors in here. These are all fully functional, and they all display information that's pertinent to you, and you can kind of toggle between what they display, including things like external cameras. The Alcor pod has a few of those built in, and you can attach extras. And it also has windows that you can view, focus on for specific maneuvers. Like this would be used probably for docking or whatever. And this has an external camera facing. I'm not sure why this one faces down, but whatever. And then there's the Nav Wall that I was talking about earlier. Oh look, we have a light. Yay! I'm not sure why you need a light, but it looks cool. There's obviously some texture work. This is very much a work in progress, but it's just so far, it's fantastic how much detail the authors put into this. All the little toggles actually work, and they toggle, the appropriate action group or command for whatever they're set to do. So the SAS toggle will obviously turn on SES. RCS will enable your RCS thrusters. I'm not sure what these ones do. Haven't tested. Kind of scared to find out. This is one of the monitors, which is used primarily for interfacing directly with another module that's included with the Alcor package, which is a little simple external camera that you can slap on radially, and that monitor will link directly in with those. Basically, we have KOS and IR integration, which I actually did not realize. So if I put some of my Infernal Robotics on here, I'll be able to interface with those. I don't have KOS, but I've heard good things. And I do have ScanSat, so you can see from the map there on the right. Oh, what's this? Can I like go full screen on that camera? Is that what that was? That would be fantastic if I could go full screen. No? Maybe I just... No, I think... no, it doesn't look like I can go full screen on the camera. I'm trying to click on it here and it's not doing much. Maybe Ah, that's what it was. Okay, I just went full screen on the lower landing window there. Ooh, what's that? That red dot there is an anomaly that my ScanSat picked up on one of its earlier passes, and it's just a few kilometers west of me here. Looks like it's about 25 kilometers west. I'm gonna have to check that out when I bring in some additional resources support for the base. I'll bring in a lander or something and drive over there and take a look at it. A rover, I mean, not a lander, obviously. Okay, so yeah, we have landed on the moon in a good spot for my future base operations. Fantastic. And one of my idiots is having a seizure. Somebody bring a med kit. I think he needs epinephrine. Or a mallet. Okay, so Targetron is another mod. Really simple. Allows you to switch or set target to any craft that you currently have in orbit or in active in the world, I guess. Could be sitting on the runway and it would still show up here. Really useful for not having to go back to the Space Center or go to the map. You might have heard a little bit of a ringtone there in the background. That was my phone going off. Yes, I have a Doctor Who ringtone. Be jealous. Or probably not, because you could just get one yourself. Anyways, okay, so now we need to get our SSTO back to Kerbanopolis. Kerbin Dallas. No. What was his name? I can't remember. The guy from The Fifth Element. Maybe it was Kerbin. I don't know. I'll look it up later. So back to the fast forward mode, we're just going to do a quick burn to get us back into a high orbit using as little delta V as possible. And then we will do a braking maneuver here to bring our periapsis down to a low Kerbin orbit. And about this time is when I have a brilliant idea. Now, I had a satellite, actually I had a station in orbit earlier that I wanted for an orbital refinery / science center, etc. But the part count was way too high. Anytime I loaded it or went anywhere near it, it would just lag all to hell. I mean, you couldn't do anything. Your frame rate dropped to like 10 whenever you went near the station. So I evacuated the crew from it and I separated the science module section from it. And the science module still has crew in it, but I'd like to try to recover it back to Kerbin. So I'm going to try to use the shuttle to capture it and then safely deorbit it and land it on the runway. Due to a freak miracle and some really clever maneuvering without using MechJeb for the initial portion anyways, I managed to turn my return orbit from the moon into an intercept orbit, a perfect Holman transfer, I don't know, whatever you call that thing, out to the orbit of the station, which is orbiting I think at 150 or maybe 200 kilometers. But due to some again time constraints, I went ahead and told MechJeb to fine-tune my approach so that it would get me nice and close, and then I just did a nice slow 2 meter a second acceleration burn to catch up to it. So here we are, and I can immediately see that this is going to be a problem. It's got a nuclear reactor strapped to the bottom of it. It's required to power the generator that gives it electricity to perform science, because everything is for science. So we need to see if we can first upgrade the radiators, because I actually acquired the Radiator Upgrade just actually yesterday, and these radiators hadn't been upgraded yet. And the reason I'm doing that is to increase their maximum heat capacity, so that even when they're folded up, they will have enough heat capacity to not cause any sudden unplanned disassemblies of the reactors and things like that. And actually, I think I'll probably go ahead and just kill this reactor, just scram it. I'll have to send a Kerbal out to do that. Now the fission reactors can only be deactivated or reactivated manually from the outside, whereas the fusion reactors and the antimatter reactors you get later on, they can be activated by remote. That's again part of KSP Interstellar. I wonder if I have... It'd be really nice if I had some KS struts, so that once I docked the station, once I docked the science module, I could secure it in the cargo hold a little bit better. I'm not far enough. I'm not close enough to check that one. I know I had put some in here for reinforcing its connection to the station when I brought it up, but I'm not sure if there's still any in there. Aha! Profit. So we got plenty of those to secure the connection, assuming I can get it to fit in the cargo bay. Now, it looks, just at first glance, that my RCS system is not going to be very balanced. This was a two-stage RCS system because it had a 2.5 meter Nerva strapped to the bottom of this to push it into orbit, or well, to complete its transfer to the station. And then I jettisoned that once I got to the station because I didn't obviously need it anymore. But that probably threw off my RCS alignment. And I'm betting you that when I go to align it, it's going to, yeah, it's moving around. Which will make positioning with this a little bit difficult. Probably what I'll have to do is I'll just have to use the shuttle to maneuver it, because the shuttle's RCS system is close enough to a perfect balance that I can translate laterally without spinning the nose around. I'll have to disable the nose RCS though, because they are there for reentry control. Yeah, it's just picking up way too much velocity as it tries to just rotate. Not gonna work. Okay, well, the translate forward and aft is pretty balanced because there's just 4 RCS jets, so we'll just kill my momentum with this and then set it to kill rotation mode so that it will stay still in theory. And then we'll just use the lodestars maneuvering to try to get in position. Set some targets here so the system knows where to orient to. I'm just going to be rolled upside down. I'll have to invert the roll. Set this to 180 so it'll spin around the other direction. There we go. Okay, now that's almost kind of sort of looking like this might actually work. I'm still not quite sure about its size though. I think it's just a little bit too wide with those huge radiators on there. If I had put medium radiators on it, it probably would have worked. For sure. But we'll see. We'll see what happens here. Now, seeing as this is taking a while, I am going to go ahead and switch to fast forward, just because, you know, docking maneuvers are kind of slow and boring to watch, but you'll still get the gist of it. It's only moving at 1000% speed, I think. So you can kind of see as I inch closer to the station, I eventually discover that it's probably just not going to fit. It's just too wide with those extra radiators on there. And if I had some way to break them off or jettison them, which I actually think I might be able to break them off, kind of like solar sails. Maybe we'll try that real quick. Hang on. Uh, okay, that's interesting. Apparently, you just fly right through them. That's not going to help any. Okay, well, we'll just try to wedge it in here. Maybe we'll get really lucky and it will just clip. Nope, it bounced. Maybe a little bit more. No, not gonna work. It's just hitting on the solar sails. Okie doke. Well, screw that. Let's see if we can at least get the plane back on the tarmac. That would be helpful. I can't remember my key bindings from my action groups here. Just take a quick look. Cargo bay cam. This is kind of cool for making sure your payload is stable while you're flying or whatever. Turn the lights on inside there so you can see. And actually, it looks like my position is kind of convenient. That might be KSC right there. No, I don't think so. There's too much desert there. Yeah, there's KSC. Yeah, a little bit farther to the east. That little peninsula that was sticking out there reminded me of the kind of peninsula that the KSC Space Center runway sits on. But close enough. So we're just going to spin retrograde here. I need to unset my target so that my ascending and descending nodes go away because they're kind of bugging me. So I'll just double click here in space to get rid of that. And watch as I rotate around. And begin a deceleration burn. Now, one of the other things that FAR does is because it's accurately tracking aerodynamics, it makes reentry kind of interesting. If you come in at the wrong angle, or you don't have enough lift, or any varying number of things, and I do not proclaim to be any sort of expert on the subject. As I said, I just started using it, but in my tests, I've discovered that if you come in at the wrong approach, or if you don't have enough stability, you will just spiral out of control. And if your craft isn't designed well, it will just split apart into a million little tiny pieces and coast rather ungracefully to Kerbin's surface, where you will certainly die. In my case, my craft is designed fairly well, and it is reinforced where it needs to be reinforced, so it can survive some pretty high stresses, as you would expect a spacecraft to do. But its weight is very, very particular because it's carrying two 14-ton nuclear reactors on the back of it. Its center of mass is way, way aft, and the delta wings, they definitely help mitigate that, especially with that oversized tail that I have on there. But if I don't hit the angle of approach just right, and I don't maintain perfect control as I decelerate from Mach 7 or whatever it is that you hit the atmosphere at, the aircraft will just tumble, and you're actually probably going to see that, because it usually takes me one or two attempts to get the approach just right. This is the third time I've re-entered this craft into the atmosphere. Well, this will be as I'm recording. Just get set up so that we're at least pointing the right direction. You obviously don't want to come into the atmosphere facing the wrong direction. That would probably be a bit painful. Jebediah would enjoy the experience undoubtedly, but Bill would be rather annoyed at us. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my FAR display so I can see exactly how fast I'm going. And the FAR panel displays two useful things for you, just having it up like that. your Mach number, which is of course your decimal percentage or multiple of the speed of sound that you're currently traveling at, and your fractional SL density. Now that took me a minute to figure out what that was. That is your percentage or your decimal point indicator of the current atmosphere of your aircraft as compared to sea level. So if it says 0.5, then you're at half of the atmosphere that's sea level, the atmospheric density. And that's kind of a good indice of a couple of things. Your terminal speed will be affected by that, terminal velocity, the amount of lift that your wings generate, obviously, and how fast you can go because of less drag on your aircraft. Also, in this case, how well your engines perform. And as you can see, I start listing a little bit out of control, and then, oh, there it goes. And once it starts tumbling like that, I don't have deadly reentry because I couldn't deal with that. Deadly reentry doesn't exactly support spaceplanes very well because there's not, well, at least it doesn't support B9 spaceplanes as far as I know, because there is no heat shield module for B9 spaceplanes unless the stat would be built in there. And one of my RCS tanks ruptured there, which is why I'm suddenly out of RCS now, and I will basically just end up kind of in a flat spin here in a moment. I've seen this happen plenty of times. No matter how I try to recover, it just won't work. Good thing I quick saved before I re-entered. So cue the tumbling. Whee! Of course, if we look down there on the right, Jebediah is of course loving the experience. Okay, we'll just go ahead and reload that quick save. Let's try this again with the nose pointed in the correct direction. I'll go ahead and set my engines to propellant mode, or to atmospheric mode. And using the RCS thrusters, I can maintain enough control over the aircraft on re-entry. Now, in real life, this would probably cook both my occupants because the heat shielding is on the bottom of the aircraft, but in this case, I'm okay with the really pretty special effects not actually doing anything. So, we are now back in the atmosphere safely, decelerating, and we're about 5,000 meters up. Go ahead and throttle back up and level out. We're, I think, about 50 kilometers west of KSC. I don't know how big this continent that I'm on is. I'm on the coast of it, but thanks to time warp, you don't actually have to watch it. Just on the other side of those mountains is where KSC is at. And I get visual. Oh, okay. So I'm not sure what happened there. Apparently, when I paused the game there to go to the bathroom, Fraps stopped recording, and then I had to redo the entire re-entry because of that. Because the game crashed after Fraps stopped recording, so I alt-tabbed out to see what had happened. And yeah, just bad things happen when you alt-tab using Fraps. So if you're using Fraps, make sure you stop your recording before you alt-tab. Pro tip. Yeah, here we are arriving back at KSC. I'm coming a little bit too low. I'm probably gonna bounce. Looks like I'm gonna bounce. I'm gonna bounce. I've done this before. I'm gonna bounce. I bounced. A good thing I have strong landing gear. But landing's gonna be okay either way. On the ground, go ahead and set the brakes. Coast to a stop. And Jeb and Bill have survived yet another of my grueling space experiments. Hey, we just took a space plane to the moon, man. That's pretty fantastic. Let's pop out some ladders, let the crew out. Yeah, I don't really need 2 ladders, but I need them because if I don't, the asymmetrical drag on one side of the aircraft becomes a bit of a nuisance and tries to cause the aircraft to yaw in that direction. So I went ahead and put 2 on just because it would be easier to fly. Also, so that the crew can, hump the ladder and stuff. Because Kerbals don't know how to climb ladders. They think that you do it upside down. That's part of their problem. Maybe if I try like... Oh, that works. Yeah, we'll just jump off. Hooray! Should I plant a flag? No. No, we don't need a flag in the middle of the runway. That would cause problems later on. See if I can climb back up. Sure, that works just fine. Whatever. Seriously, just whatever. Anyway, this has been Spaceplane to the Moon. Thanks for watching, guys, and if this is the kind of video that you like watching, comment or like or subscribe and let me know. I have considered turning this into a series, so if this is something that you enjoy, I might be doing more of them. So let me know what you think below. Alright? See you guys later.